Good morning. This is Richard Cheng with the Sativa Segment, episode 10. Before we get started, I'd like to point out two things. One, this episode, as usual, is fueled by Dads at Peace. It's a men's resource center that's based here in Dallas, Texas. If you want to learn more about it, you can look it up on Facebook, Dads at Peace. Secondarily, this is a gift I received today. This is from Texas Cannabis TV, and we'll get more into it a little bit later on. We have a guest here that's from Texas Cannabis TV. But Cannabis TV, Texas Cannabis TV, you can find them on Instagram. Today we have two guests. One is a physician, and the other one is, how can I put him? He is like the Kevin Bacon of cannabis. Everybody is to the 6th degree of Daulton O'Neill in Dallas in cannabis. So welcome, Dr. Rozier.
Thank you.
And Daulton O'Neill.
Thanks for that glowing welcome here. Happy to finally make this a Sativa segment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for the gift. I like it a lot.
You could do
It's magnetic.
Any type of herb.
Yeah.
You could do some Himalayan sea salt. Break it up yourself in there.
All the seasonings.
I'll have to try to give that a try when I get home.
All the seasonings.
Some federally legal hemp flour.
Now I get to prepare my sea salt bath tonight
There
with
we
this
go.
thing.
Exactly. I'll get some bath bombs sent to you. You know.
Thanks. Thank you. Well, hey, thanks for making it out, you guys. Dr. Rozier, you go by Antonio.
Yes.
As I heard you introduce yourself earlier. And Daulton, tell me a little bit about yourselves. Daulton, why don't you go first? Because I know you a little bit better. I've known you longer, and I know your story. But I want to know other things I don't know about you. Tell me all the stuff that you're into these days, and a little bit about your background.
Well, that's a loaded question. I'll try to keep myself to a minute. Somebody tapped me on the shoulder here. I never thought I'd be entrepreneurial. It kind of scared me. Hey, this is that. But as I've gotten older, I've learned that it's scary not to be entrepreneurial. When jobs start getting cut, the tech industry starts crashing. You could work hard for a company for 40 years and your pension just disappear because of dumb things our politicians do. And all of a sudden your retirement's just gone. So I was super scared to make the jump, but ultimately just knew I had to get into it. The cannabis industry was calling me. I was working as a travel nurse recruiter at a company right down the street. Loved it. Was hammering 200 calls a day, calling nurses and stuff. So
we talked about that before.
Yeah, being around doctors don't scare me. I'm like, dude, I called 200 nurses a day asking them, do you want a job? So it's like, I'll deal with them. And I was, surfing on the internet as you do at a call center. And saw about the TCUP, the Texas Cannabis licensing was going out. This is like 2018, early 2018, late 2017. I was like, man, I've got to find a way to get into this. My mom had breast cancer and I saw weed really help her. I was buying it for her in high school, and it was really top shelf stuff for 2012. But it was that. I've always just
needless to say, it was unregulated.
It was unregulated, and now looking back, there was probably pesticides in it. It was probably not grown with decent quality, and but it helped her with the nausea and stuff. And from an economical standpoint, it's like the war on drugs was a failure. Grew up listening to Ron Paul and Jesse Ventura and like politicians like that said, hey, so I just knew it was a good thing. And that's kind of how we got here. We started throwing meetups. That's part of the story. Our first meetup was July of 2018. I used to throw parties in college and, just party. It's like, hey, let's have a party. Let's have a reason.
Where'd you go to college?
Texas State University. Eat 'em up cats in San Marcos.
When did you graduate?
2015. 2015. That's for like all the kids that can't get into UT. That's the joke. But I only applied there in Texas Tech and chose San Marcos instead. And
it's beautiful campus.
Beautiful campus. And the funny thing about San Marcos is they actually, in like the 80s, they legalized cannabis. The city council did. The state came in and said, you're not allowed to do that. Like the city council passed an ordinance in the 80s legalizing inside the city. So that's funny. San Marcos has a rich history. I'm actually going to circle back and probably do a student organization with them. We talked about exporting the Texas A&M Chill program or starting a new one at Texas State because there's so many marketers and culture down there. But I don't want to digress. I want to kind of move on. I started throwing events because that's the only, I'm not a scientist, not a doctor. Again, can't really do math, but can barely read. Audible.
But you do know a lot of people.
I do. Well, I just started talking to people and, hey, what's up? And I like to talk to people and I like to get out there. I like to learn about folks. I do believe in like the 6 degrees of separation and using the tools of the internet. When I had Facebook and Twitter, it's, when Zuckerberg talked about bringing the world together, it's like, okay, there's good and bad. How are we going to use this for good? Yeah. And so we started doing events, and I've started a couple other ventures after that, consulting and just meeting folks and writing the industry as it goes. But, events and media, I can't grow very well. Again, can't do the math, can't do the accounting. I can read laws. My background's in government. I was a non-voting member, actually, of the San Marcos City Council. I had a dais and everything. I represented the student body. So I do understand bills. I understand government structure. I understand how the money gets appropriated and the pork barrel and all that. So I'm kind of using my government knowledge and just attitude to pave my own way in the industry. I ultimately just wanted a job that wasn't going to drug test me. Like that was really the goal. It's like, hey, I'll go find a job. I don't want to be drug tested because cannabis really helped me with acid reflux, and I'm like a patient too on some stuff, and really helped calm my GI tract and some other stuff. And anyway, but that's my story. It's just getting started, and been friends with Rico here for a minute. So that's part of it.
And you do call me by another name too, so we won't get into that.
Get that one later.
I forget your name's Richard. You're a
get
professor.
that one later.
Dr. Rozier.
Yeah.
Tell me a little about you. I mean, I know you're from Jersey.
Yeah, I'm from Jersey.
And you're a pain doctor, but you're also involved with the Texas Cannabis.
I prescribe cannabis.
Use program.
Yeah. I mean, my way of getting in this is not as cool as Daulton's way. Mine's a little more straightforward.
You worked a little bit harder.
It's not as fun, but honestly, I mean, I did it because of my patients. I'm a pain doctor. I'm a sports doctor. I see people with all the problems that they can use cannabis for, right? Sure. Pain and anxiety and depression and the GI stuff and the nerve pain. And so they would come to my office, and no one, after people are on opiates for years at a time, and after people were on NSAIDs like ibuprofen and diclofenac, and their stomachs get all torn up, and then they have no other option, right? And so it's like, so what else is there? And so you're watching all these other states pop up and we're so far behind. So I'm just sitting just crying because I can't give patients like what they need. And then the Texas Capacity Use Act was up in 2015. And honestly, I'm gonna tell you, when I first got here, I started my first job in 2014. I was out on my own in 2015. I had no idea this even existed because there was no marketing. Doctors weren't talking about it. You had no idea. And so maybe about 2 years ago, I finally found out about this, about us prescribing cannabis in Texas. And honestly, I didn't believe it. I was like, come on, dude. Like, I had to go research myself because I didn't believe the doctor telling me that either. And so once I kind of got in, I learned all about it, and I was like, you know what, I got to do this.
That's so interesting that when you first came across it, you said there's no way.
Yeah,
that was your attitude. Is like,
right.
Oh well, there's no way that doctors will be involved, which tells me how many other doctors are reticent about getting into it, unless they, of course, take the time. Of course, we all know doctors are under tight schedules. Time is your biggest enemy,
all the time.
And so, it has progressed since I've gotten into it. So I got into it through actually the Texas Cannabis Industry Association. I was their outside general counsel. I actually had a chance to look at Senate Bill 339 and drive some amendments to it, and got it proposed to DPS. And so when I got into it, it was still very early. We only had one qualifying condition at the time.
Right.
Intractable epilepsy, right?
That's right. And it was very statutorily defined. And but it was amazing how many physicians I spoke with that either didn't believe in it or just were flat out fearful of it. I'll give you an example. I represented this neurologist, and he's, without mentioning his name, he's an older doctor. He just thought it was basically quack medicine. And I think part of it is generational. What do you think?
I mean, it is. I mean, you got to think like it's definitely generational. I think. I mean, I talk to my mom about this all the time. She's like, the devil's green lettuce. We're not going. I'm not doing it. Yeah. And her son is prescribing it. Yeah. Talks to her about all the scientific studies, all the evidence, and she's still like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. But now though, I'm gonna say this, mama has come around a little bit.
There we go.
I'm telling her some stories about all these great patients, and she's like, oh, you know what? I think this is a great thing, And so
now is mama asking for something now?
Mama, but Pops, Pops has a good time. So I'm gonna say that. I'm not gonna throw him out there like that, but
That's funny.
Cannabis science is rapidly evolving too. You don't have to smoke it. There's other consumption ways. It's not always good. I wanted to kind of mention the marketing thing. I don't think the TCUP program had any baked in marketing money in the program. I know like the Affordable Care Act had marketing money to explain to the population. So it's really no surprise that this wasn't communicated. You would think out of like the $500,000 license, we could spend like maybe $2,000 on marketing.
It really wasn't, because and this is an indication why it's an indication of how it wasn't. I was giving, for the first, I would say 5 years when I got into this, I was speaking all around the state, all around the country at lawyer events. And it wasn't until probably around 2018, 2019, about,
4 years after the law passed.
4 years after the law passed, and about really 5 to 6 years after I already got into it, that lawyers were actually aware that, Texas has a cannabis program.
Right. Yeah.
So it really was.
Yeah. And with doctors too, man, you got to think about this too. Like doctors are just so, I mean, we're taught how to treat, right? And so when that kind of comes along that's new, people are kind of like sketchy about it. And because they're used to treating a certain way. Yep. And so you bring in your morals, your values and all that. And so some people are totally against cannabis. And I mean, that's okay, right? But I don't think it's right to not give the option to people if they need it, despite your beliefs, right? I mean, it's legal. People benefit from it. So what's the problem?
Right.
You know,
especially in a super allegedly free country, you would think, the right to treat yourself. So,
and there are some interesting right to try laws out there, both on a federal level and in certain states. Like, for example, in the state of California, they have what's called Ryan's Law, and it deals with cancer. I believe I'm not a California based attorney, obviously, but it actually mandates hospitals to allow patients to try cannabis products. They can't actually prevent it. Now that creates a conflict of laws issue, right?
Yeah.
Because many of those hospitals may be under a Medicare certification.
Right.
Or they
federally funded.
Right.
Well, and plus there's a clause in their Medicare contract with CMS saying that they won't aid and abet a federal crime.
Right.
So that now
it's kind of dicey.
So then it becomes very, very dicey, right? And I'm curious, as a physician here in Texas, and are you licensed in other states too?
Just right now in Texas.
Okay. Have you heard of any of your colleagues or maybe yourself getting any guidance or any, any communication regarding medical cannabis from the medical board?
So, I mean, they do like, there's not actual rules or regulations just yet. It's so new and infant that, it's still kind of like wide open. Here in Texas, most docs are kind of just find their own way on their own, right? I mean, we have, there is like a guiding body, but there's really not much guidelines right now how to do this. I mean, because it's so small right now, right? Yeah. And so, it's just not there yet, and so we kind of just get out here, we start, and you try not to make any mistakes on the way. I had guys like Daulton to help me out and people who I talk to, but really a lot of it's just been what I've learned on my own, just rocketing and going with it.
Yeah, I only ask because I don't know of any Texas Medical Board guidance that expressly prevents doctors from getting into it, right?
Not at all, no.
And I haven't heard of a single doctor in the state of Texas being penalized or subject to any administrative penalties because of being part of the TCUP program, right? And so I just wanted your viewpoint on it. Daulton, tell me a little bit about, now you're with a couple of companies.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean,
I've been making the joke, when you're with 20 different companies, that means none of them make any money. So we're turning.
Well, when we first met, one of your questions to me was, well, how do I monetize some of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about how you're monetizing some of your efforts.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like getting to the party, trying to meet everybody, and then figuring out what to do later, kind of playing matchmaker here. The monetization effort, has been a slow road. One, I've learned it is easier to work for other people sometimes than working for yourself. This whole notion of entrepreneurship is you don't work for yourself. Dude, I work for my clients. Like, the clients are the boss. So this whole thing of, I don't have a job. It's like, or I don't have a boss. It's like, no, dude, your clients are your boss, unless you've got some real estate dividends, and then your tenants are your boss. So I'm like, really, of this, I think there's a lot of miscommunication about entrepreneurship being promoted online about what it is and, all the roads to it. But anyway, the question was, how are we monetizing? Greenlight is a long form established events company. We incorporated that October of 2018. And so that's a functioning events company that will do consulting gigs on, marketing gigs on. We throw one event per year, a year. It's called the Texas Cannabis Roundup. So that was a profitable event, and we're going to look to build off that. I think we're going to do it like August 10th.
Who's doing that with you?
Well, my partner in Greenlight right now is David Flores, but we have a couple other consultants, contractors. We call them ourselves the Greenlight Gang. We got Simeon, our videographer. We got DJ McCrae, the DJ. We got a whole little group of folks, and a couple other people that are kind of taking other jobs that help us behind the scenes. So that's Greenlight. That's one. It's more of a vehicle. We never thought Greenlight was going to be the biggest thing to either like pay the bills, but just a vehicle to meet everybody and throw events. And some other organizations and folks have really stepped up throwing quality events. The reason why we started doing it is there was literally no events happening. So it was kind of a need. It's like, hey, we just have to do it. And we wouldn't even charge tickets. We'd usually sell a couple sponsorships, invite a couple speakers, and call it a deal. Texas Cannabis TV is being monetized online by ads, consulting, media deals. We've been blessed to be hooked up with other media entities, like some of the biggest in Texas. So sometimes when they DM us, hey, can we buy an ad? It's like, an ad's not great for us, but we'll hook you up with another big publication. maybe a big magazine, maybe a online syndicate, a media blog, and we'll kick those deals to our other media partners for, a kickback or a commission, because since we're finding the deal. So really we're a kind of boutique PR agency too. If you come to me and say, hey, I want marketing, we could run it through our channels at Texas Cannabis TV, but there's other channels as well. There's other media platforms to get them on. So really I'm kind of settling down with the media and events. That's kind of where we're at on the green light Texas Cannabis TV side. Those are like my two things I own, but then there's other clients I have that we could get into with other media and, helping a couple people out with the license here and there. Just giving people goggles. Sunlight's the best disinfectant. So half the people I talk to just have no idea what's going on. So as, one of my favorite lawyers taught me, hey, give them 20 minutes, explain what you can do. And then after that, hey, this is kind of going to cost you because I don't have enough time to save everybody. Jesus feeding the 5,000 around here. It's like, hey, everybody's got, even really smart people call with like the silliest questions about the teacup. And I'm like, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, like you should know. Like they're asking me some of the dumbest, and there's no such thing as a dumb question. When you're in a hurry and you got places to be, and you owe other people your time, and you got deadlines. It's like, no, might be a not dumb question to you, but it's exhausting to me. It's like, hey,
man, dude, what don't you do though, Daulton?
Well, I just try to learn. Just get on the internet. You ask questions, chat GDP. Being a millennial type of person, like we got to use the internet. You really do anything with the internet. You can really do anything for free. It doesn't cost you a lot, and I try to just show people what to do. Hey, use this software. Hey, hire this person. Because if you're going to ask me to do it myself, like you're going to get hit with the invoice soon. I still want to be friends, but you got to pay the invoice.
I'm so curious how AI is going to get implemented into the industry of cannabis.
Maybe CRISPR and genetics.
Yeah, AI is such a broad thing. It'd be cool. I think at some point now, even think about all the dosing. Think about how we treat the patients, right? What if we could just combine just all the combinations of cannabis people are on, seeing their conditions and seeing their outcomes? You might be able to create like an automatic recipe for people.
Crunch
right?
the data.
You know, like we get 1 million patients here. That'd be cool, but then they'd be taking some of my job, so I don't think that's cool. Never mind, Chat GPT.
You just got to take a little piece of ownership in the mother program.
All right, so tell me about one of the challenges you have with your clients, because you mentioned your clients are kind of your lifeblood to your companies, right? But tell me about some of the challenges when you're dealing with clients.
Regulations definitely the hardest. From legal regulations to even the social media ones. Could be so easy just outdo Facebook ads. And be the middleman to be a cannabis Facebook advertiser, which I know some of these things are loosened up, but being the middleman for these big agents. And also Twitter, we came on. We were one of the first people to apply for the Twitter thing, and we got hit that, hey, unless you're going to spend $10,000, you're at the end of the line. And no hate to Twitter, we're definitely interested to get in on that. But when they announced Twitter, you can do cannabis advertising. It was like, oh, that's fun, and you apply, and it's like, hey, you got to have 10 grand later.
Get that blue check first,
get
sir.
your blue check, and then shout out to Kevin Carrillo because he helped get me connected somebody directly at Twitter. So now we're interfacing directly with them. The red tape. This whole Delta 8, Delta 9, HHC, all these things. As an events company, one, we hold our position in the community really strong to make sure we're having compliant legal companies that are good actors. We've had in our interesting history, we've had a couple interesting sponsors that didn't represent the industry the best. And
we'll leave it at that.
I got an earful from our other attorney friend in Addison.
Okay.
And she said, hey, you can't be putting me on stage with these people that have no paperwork, no. So anyway, we learned our lesson. So it's hard, one, to sell sponsorship. It's hard to sell something. Yeah. As another one of my clients, Weed and Whiskey J-Man, says, nothing happens until someone sells something. That's like the motto. Nothing happens until someone sells something. You got to be the salesperson. And sometimes it's hard for me as being the friend. You got to be the leader of your sales organization as well. You have to go do that. It's like the Texas Cannabis Roundup. I gave the deck to everybody, but until I started selling, nothing else trickled in. So that's kind of what it is. But the red tape, you're working with. I remember it was like a month before the Texas Hemp Convention. They said Delta 8's illegal. And I'm like, damn, that's that tough place to be. You have all these vendors and sponsors. You sold them something saying you could bring these products. Nobody has these contracts figured out. And then now you're telling them you can't bring it. And then some people follow, some people don't. It's just such a mess. So I'd say, to answer it in short, the regulations of keeping up. I can't sell a sponsorship saying I don't know what's legal. Then also keeping my own integrity on the line by saying, hey, we're not going to allow these products that are illegal in the moment. So it's all the way down to the final T. So it's hard to sell something, especially 8 months in advance. Like Texas Cannabis Roundup is in August. I could have probably already sold $15,000-$20,000 worth of sponsorship, and we still will. But it's like, what happens when I sell something and their main product is no longer legal in the state? What happens when something happens and they're no longer in business because something happened. They moved states. They're applying for this license. Half the people we work with is like, it's all scatterbrained. We're doing this. It's all a contingency plan. Hey, we're doing this until this happens. Hey, Daulton, I want to sponsor this, but if this happens, we can't. Hey, I want to advertise with you, but like, we might not have it in this or we might not have it in that. And people really want to go the furthest bang for their buck. And we don't have control over the social media companies. So I feel bad when we sell an ad for $50 or $100 and we post it. It's always funny on Texas Cannabis TV, the stuff that we post that is the most important information gets like 4.5 likes, but we post some dumb shit about, Eric Cartman selling vapes at South Park, 1,900 likes, literally all organic, all real. So it's like, how do you package that to an advertiser when the real information we push for them goes nowhere? I feel bad about even with the invoice. We have to do it anyway because, we can't, I guess we could do some sliding scale if it gets certain, then you pay. But that's not even how we roll. We didn't get to be advertisers. We literally created some of these media platforms just to get the word out because there was no other, we started it before some of the other main publications out here, which I think they're doing a great job. Again, with the events, now that there's some other events, we're not as hyperactive about throwing events. With the media, now that there's other media channels, we're not going to die on the media hill, especially when Instagram just snap up a finger. I remember I was at the Texas Hemp Coalition at A&M and might have had like 2 beers, so I didn't care, but I was taking a shower, signed into our Instagram. It was just gone. Poof, it's gone. And I was actually kind of excited. I'm like, I don't have to deal with this anymore. I don't have to deal with all these people that want this posted or these or, and then we ended up repealing the Instagram, getting it back. So that was like a major strike. So now we have like a major strike on us, another major one, we're done. So it's also, we're having to play conservative with it when the fun thing to do is just like, kind of like shit post all day, but you can't do that. You're going to lose it. And then, everything else. And we're going to other platforms, Twitter, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's actually the honey hole. That's where everybody needs to be. I'm going to help push some of this content through LinkedIn because look at the beautiful doctor down here.
Thank you, sir.
I'm trying to be in the same video on LinkedIn with him down here.
Well, let's shift over to the good doctor here. Good doctor, you have two. the good doctor.
Trademark the good RX doctor.
I could go by the green healer at this point.
Green healer.
I'm trying to get on his good side. Maybe he'll give me some good prescriptions down the road.
It's worth it.
So you have a couple of ventures in the healthcare space.
Mm-hmm,
you have ARC, medical cannabis clinic.
Yes.
That's what keeps you busy on the medical cannabis side.
Yes.
Conversely, you have, I believe it's Zen Interventional
Pain and Wellness.
Mm-hmm. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe this is a good time for you to explain to the audience. Yeah. Your background is PMNR, which is physical medicine rehab. Mm-hmm. I was an occupational therapist.
My man.
Before I became an attorney. So I worked with a lot of PMNR doctors. Mm-hmm. But eventually it transitioned to pain, and now it's more, would you say it's more global now?
Yeah, well, it's more spine. I do a lot of spines in sports medicine now. So pretty much if it hurts, muscle, bone, tendon, nerves, I take care of it.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
So tell me about each of your ventures and how you what do you take on a different approach with one versus the other?
We kind of have to. So, I have a practice where I see people with all kind of pain problems, right? And so when I started doing cannabis, I was like, just kind of throw it in here with the practice. So I'm seeing you, I'm taking care of your back pain and your nerve pain, and then I'm gonna do a little just cannabis prescribing in my practice. And then, but it started getting kind of complicated because one thing was like the legal part. My question was, should I keep my practice with my cannabis practice for one, right? And so when I went to try to get more coverage for my malpractice, I had issues putting it in my clinic because I was doing cannabis. Mm-hmm. So then I had to keep them separate because even though I'm prescribing a drug that's technically legal, everybody looks at it's not legal. From my practice insurance, my practice, some of the lawyers, insurances, like
banking.
They look banking, which is also an issue, right? And so it's crazy. So you're sitting here going, I'm prescribing on a program through a law in Texas. Mm-hmm. Why it's so hard, right? And it was hard, so I had to separate the two. Yep. And so I took out ARC Medical Cannabis Clinic. So ARC meaning ARK. Why ARC? Because I was having issues with access. So I was like, you know what? Let me get everybody on this boat. Right?
The ARC.
So you get the ARC
the
now?
ARC.
Not Arkansas, but the ARC. So, hey, come on, come all. 2 by 2, 3 by 3. Come on, hop on this, and I'm gonna get you what you need to get. Right? And so we built out ARC Medical Cannabis Clinic. I have a partner, Kenny Hooper, and we built this this big cannabis clinic. It's all telemedicine, basically, which is good because I don't have to have a brick and mortar just yet because there's no law about that yet. But having to have a brick and mortar.
I'll say this: I represent probably 5 or 6 different cannabis, medical cannabis practices for physicians, and they're almost always telemedicine.
Right. And so, I mean, people like it. It's easy. I think COVID taught us that, telemed is easy to do, right? And so we just hop right on, start seeing these patients, start seeing all of them all at once, and it's cool. But then there's also problems though too, right? And one thing is cost. I think right now, cost is huge. I mean, I think we're going to get this bill passed where it's going to be 5% by volume, right? In regards to the actual content of the kind of THC, it's 1% right now. Meaning that
hemp plus.
Folks got to take a whole lot, whether it be a whole lot of gummies, a whole lot of tincture. So you want to be able to take a little drop, right? But folks are drinking like a whole, like a whole capful or capful and a half of like oil to get what they need. So that's one thing. So it costs a lot because of the amount we can get. Secondly, it's an access issue too. I mean, it's delivery issues. So my practice is in Mansfield. I have Arlington, Waxahachie, Midlothian. They don't get delivered THC out there. Their products at all. And so, I got people who don't drive, who need their medicine.
Do they go to access centers?
They have to. Yeah. So, but it's a small little window of time.
That's
it's in some place that maybe not be able to get to. Might live far. You got a cute little 85-year-old lady. Right. And I have a lot of older patients too, right? That's the thing too. I'm gonna talk about later, like just how they look. Right. These people are of all ages. I got my girls. I got my girls walk in who's 85. She's still doing her pickleball and everything. Yeah. Knee hurts. Has some PTSD. Have some, might have some like nerve problems. Great for them. I got a little lady. She might be in a nursing home with all this nerve pain. She doesn't want to take hydrocodone anymore, and so we're doing a little gummy. And then next thing you know, I had a lady last week. She came by. She was crying. She was like, I haven't had hydrocodone in a month. And she's like 82 years old, nursing home, fully coherent,
great.
Fully functional.
No hydro,
dude,
for a month.
Chilling, looking awesome, hair up, had her finger waves in. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying is that people are benefiting from this, but it's hard to get it to them. And then when they can get it, it's expensive. Most people are on a fixed income, right?
Expensive.
These bottles are like $60.
Are none of your patients getting it delivered at all?
Some are,
okay.
but some are. It depends where you live, though. They can't make it everywhere. It's like it's a very small window of time that product could be in that truck, right? We know this, and so there's areas in Texas and DFW right now that don't get delivered to.
Sure.
And so it makes it really hard for my patients. So I'm trying to figure this out.
Well, not to
right
mention
now.
there's only 2 licensees that's operational
Right
now,
exactly.
which we all know that the application process for more licenses is going on as we speak right now, right?
Yes.
So I have 2 questions. One, what are the type of the products that you prescribe the most? And then 2, what is the most common qualifying condition that you're utilizing TCUP for?
I think people tend to like the tincture the most. I mean, there's not much, right? So, so the 2 dispensaries, they have multiple products, but people tend to use the gummies or the tincture, right? And so the gummies are cool, but the problem is that for one, everybody doesn't like chewing gummies, the taste. 2, they might not be as strong. I mean, there's like 5 milligram gummies and there's like 120 milligram gummy. You get about 20 in the bottle. The 5 milligram gummies, I think you get about 40, I think. And so the issue is, well, what if you need to take 10 milligrams twice a day? Using 4 a day, that bottle may last you, 10 days plus?
Yeah, and it's expensive.
Second bottle, third bottle, fourth bottle. So the tincture, I think people like the most. One, it works a little faster. It tends to go a little longer. And the thing is, you can measure it, right? You can't measure a gummy, right? Yeah. I mean, the ones they make, if I cut a gummy in half, I got good hands and all, but I can't slice a gummy perfectly in half. No, I get 50%. I can't measure
Especially for an older patient.
Thank you. Think about you got to cut it.
Yeah.
Take it for granted, right? Cutting stuff.
I don't want to generalize here, but I'm thinking, gosh, he sees older patients.
Yeah.
I wonder if some of them may even have a hard time chewing it.
Right?
From a dental standpoint.
Bro, these are issues, right? So the tincture is a little better. Again, we talk about how it's, you end up taking maybe sometimes a lot of liquid, but it works faster. It's easier to measure. I can measure out a half a drop or a quarter of a drop or a full drop much easier. And also too, like people got diabetes and stuff. So you taking gummies, is that sugar? Right?
We live in a convenience world and we're not making it convenient for these folks.
It's nuts. And it could be so much better for them, right? And so,
what about lozenges? Do you use?
So A lot of them don't use the lozenges. Most of my patients, they like the gummies and the tinctures.
Okay.
People use what they're familiar with.
Yeah.
A lot of people have had CBD before, and they've had CBD tinctures, so they know what that is, right? And so they kind of hop on what they kind of know. They know it works, and they're not gonna get sick from it.
Yeah.
So they're just real comfy with it. Exactly. So mainly gummy tinctures. They also have salves they can use too. Like there's a lotion they like to use. So if you got arthritis, because once you're on it, you can get stuff for whatever, right? Once you have a qualifying condition, you may have other things that you're also treating too, right? And so that salve is pretty good too. You rub a little bit on, boom, on your way, right? And so, but condition wise, I say two. One, the top I say right now is PTSD
because it's so broad.
Listen, PTSD is.
Come on, admit it. It's so broad.
It is. It's broad. But
everybody's got a little PTSD,
and that is exactly.
That's right.
I got a little.
Everybody's got a little bit of PTSD.
Is not traumatized.
That's right.
We all are.
We went through COVID 2020 like we're all traumatized here. Yeah.
But but being serious though, like we all have had trauma. I don't care who you are. We've all had trauma that can lead to some anxiety, depression. Now, it's a broad definition. What I don't do anymore, I don't diagnose them. So if you come to me and you have PTSD and there's no treatment for it yet, I'm not going to say you have it. I have some psych colleagues who will even talk to. They'll do an interview with you, and if you have it, diagnose you. Boom. Get the medication. Right. But a lot of my patients are already treated for it. I mean, I got people in the military, older people. I mean, I got real folks, domestic violence, sexual violence. And so I have gotten, as a pain doctor, I do a lot of mental health. But this job, I didn't foresee the people I was going to be talking to, the stories I was going to get. I mean, I got people on the phone crying to me, bawling to me, and it's really moving now to see these people get better. I didn't understand what I was getting into. People tell you their story like they do in my clinic, but on the phone. And I'm seeing people with all kinds of problems. And I think COVID did a lot of this. Like people just don't feel good anymore.
That becomes a public health issue.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
People don't feel good. Every single person I see now that walks in my office has some form of anxiety and depression.
They're aware of it now too.
It's being talked about more too. And so PTSD is huge. And it's amazing. I mean, I got dudes in the middle, I got Marines and Navy SEAL guys who just can't sleep, have poor, their wives don't like them anymore. They don't like being awake. Yeah. And so we start doing the cannabis and, we might do like a 1-to-1 in the daytime and at night a pure THC. And these guys were like, dude, my life is so much better. My wife likes me.
Is it because they're just happier, or is it because they're out of the depressive mood? Or
it's so many different things, right? I mean, cannabis helps with the anxiety. Right. Yep. I mean, imagine just having anxiety all day. You're startled. You don't like being in big groups. And then somehow, some way you calm down. Right. Sleep is huge. We all know that. I don't care how sick you are.
Gotta have this.
If you get some sleep, you'll feel better. Most people with pain don't sleep well. And we also know that how important sleep is just for our overall mood. Yep. Like, we gotta have sleep. I don't care if you hurt or not, you need sleep. So most people with PTSD don't sleep well. They have nightmares, right? They can't fall asleep. So now and a lot of times those other drugs like Ambien. I mean, okay, so let me tell you about Ambien. I hate prescribing Ambien. You might wake up butt naked on your lawn because you slept well. Like I have so many stories of people just going nuts off Ambien, like waking up, especially when you're older, right? Like that's the last thing.
Hey, Daulton, you want to get some Ambien?
I was thinking about it. Sounds like,
and not in a good way.
It sounds like spring break's coming
not
up.
In a good way, sir.
We're gonna get some Ambien from him. We'll take a drive down to the beach later on this month.
That sounds like Panama City Beach 2013. I don't know.
Dr. Rozier, why are you writing so much Ambien prescriptions?
So imagine the person now, all of a sudden they have great sleep, right? That changed the game for them. So you're rested, you wake up and you're like, okay, now I can start my new day because you know what? I feel better in general. And also too, it helps with the nerves, right? I mean, we know CBD is neuroprotective, it helps to regenerate nerves. And all in all, it helps you feel better too, right? And so I think it's an all-encompassing thing. But I think the biggest thing is the mood in people. People's mood improves.
I want to throw something in there. We've done no long-term research of what depriving somebody's endocannabinoid system does to them. So let's say your endocannabinoid system's been dry for 50 years. Maybe it's just like throwing a little oil in the car. Everything starts to get better regulating. I'm not the scientist. I'm not the doctor. Can barely read
I'll support that.
I mean, who knows what's going to, we can't do research on it. So if your endocannabinoid system's literally been deprived for 20 years, and then all of a sudden you get just a little in your system. Maybe it does affect.
I think it's good to explain to people that like so the endocannabinoid system, what is that? Basically, so your cannabis has these molecules, right?
Is it a lock and key system?
Yeah. So think of it that way. Exactly. Yeah. So think of it as you got a receptor and you need something in it.
You need a little lube, just a little bit.
And so people who are sick, who have conditions, have a down regulation of that, right? So basically, even if you have, because we have natural cannabinoids in our body floating around, right? But if you don't have enough of them, it's not, you're not regular, basically, right? So here is a person who's sick. You give them some THC, and they're not getting high. They're not getting like intoxicated. They're getting even now. And so now you make them even, and now everything else kind of falls into place for them, So PTSD is one. The other one I'm seeing a lot of now, suddenly, is a lot of neuropathy, like nerve pain.
Is that categorized under the neurological degenerative diseases?
So I put it
because
under,
it has like 30
early.
different.
But when I do my prescription, there's no drop down for neuropathy. So I put it under other neuro issues.
Okay.
But yes, so neuropathy is one of those that you have nerve pain. People get it from trauma. They get it from diabetes. They get it from spine injuries, right? That nummy, tingly pain you get. And so I've been doing this. I'm at practice for about 8 years now by myself. I give all the medicine for nerve pain. Gabapentin, Lyrica, amitriptyline, some anti-seizure drugs. And I've never seen people improve as much.
For neuropathy?
Dude, I'm telling you. But remember, what is CBD though? Neuroprotective, neuroregenerative, right? And the most receptors in your body are in your nervous system and your gut. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And so I'm seeing people like, I had a lady who was crying because she was like, for the first time ever, I was on vacation and I got to hike. I got to walk up the pyramid and thank you. And it was just like, I took no pain medicine.
Is there an anti-inflammatory component to it?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
I mean, God, you asked that question. So it is actually, CBD is 1,000 times stronger than NSAIDs, right? And NSAID, what is that? Ibuprofen, naproxen, right? Yeah. And so it makes you think like, so you know what NSAIDs do? Like, how many friends you have that don't rip holes in their stomach, right? Yeah. So I hate Goodies powder, okay? So I'm gonna tell you something about the South and Goodies powder. So I'm from Jersey. And I've never heard that until I moved down to the South. I'm like, what is this big old packet of white powder of stuff in it? People love Goodies powder. What is it? A high amount of NSAIDs, right? So what happens? You take ibuprofen a bunch of times, in 6, 8 months, 9 months, you're taking the naproxen. What happens? Your lining in your stomach gets all ripped up, right? Next thing you know, you got an ulcer.
But if you're drinking on it,
so what happens? But most people do, right? And so let's be serious. Most people still party when taking the medication. Yeah. So then like, oh, well, your doc goes, well, guess what? Now you can't have any more NSAIDs. So what's the next step? Something stronger than NSAIDs, right? Tramadol. And then what's next? An opiate, right? And so that's how it goes. But we have something for people who can't take NSAIDs. It's cannabis, right? Like it makes sense. And
the medical industrial complex that it works.
Exactly. And so it's like, so who's against this too? So you got to think the people who have the NSAIDs, do they want us using cannabis for it?
Of course, it cuts into their profit
margin,
right?
Because cannabis, because think about it. If cannabis was like federally legal, you know how many drugs would probably be off the market? Yeah. You wouldn't need stuff for.
When home grow, that's why the pharma is trying to come in and swallow the whole industry.
Yeah. Don't use these plants that grow naturally on the earth. You can't grow it and use it yourself. We want to make you pay for it instead, right? And so, but imagine if all the anti-nausea medicine got off the market. And stuff for your gut, stuff for anxiety, stuff for pain. Like it covers so many things too. And so that's a big market share of stuff that these pharmaceutical companies cannot break into because we got a plant that grows that can use that you can use for all kinds of different things.
I recently had, I won't mention her name, but someone I know, her father came up to me asking me, how can I qualify for the Texas Medical Cannabis Program? And I said, well, the condition I think that's probably the most encompassing is probably PTSD, but you should probably see your physician about it, or see a physician that's registered with the TCUP program. Yeah. But so just to be clear, if I were to say send him to you, would you actually diagnose him or at least go through the process of trying to diagnose him with PTSD? Or do you really refer him out, as you said earlier, to a psychologist to diagnose him to where he came to you with diagnosis of PTSD? Which one do you do?
It's dicey, right? Because I'm not trying to play in these rules just yet. By word of mouth, by speaking to people, I found out that I probably could diagnose it, but I'm a pain doctor.
Yep.
So my thing is, if you came to my office now, I'm not going to diagnose you PTSD. So how can I don't have any word in telling you your PTSD. Now I can do it. I'm a physician, but I'd rather a psychiatrist do it. So I connect with psychiatrists. They do telemedicine, 15-minute appointment with them. If you have it, you get it. We're good to go, right? And so,
and then they come to you and say, "Hey, my psychiatrist diagnosed me."
I'll get their note I have the note, and we'll be good to go. So a lot of docs don't feel comfortable. You might even be seeing your PCP now, right?
Right.
And they're treating you for depression, anxiety, but they're not going to give you PTSD, right? Because they don't feel comfortable doing it either. So because we don't have any straight rules for this yet. And so I don't feel comfortable doing it right now because I don't want to come back to me 2 years later saying I was doing something I shouldn't have been doing. Because you know what happens with the medical system will not get you when you're doing it; they get you afterwards.
Yeah,
and you're too good looking to go to jail. So
we need to get some Ambien before he goes to jail.
We're not going to
spring break this
any of that.
No, I wanted to throw in one thing because I know it's this could call. We'll do Joe Rogan 4 hours at a time. The producer over there, but it kind of brings me to the point. Love everything you're saying about the psychologist, like psychiatrist, going through the proper chain of command. But what I'm looking at as a patient and a guy that wants everybody to get healthy, that's just more cost. That's more time to the doctor. For somebody that's having like a mental health breakdown right now, to finally get to Dr. Rozier and to be told, you got to go do this. And that's another doctor's appointment. It's more insurance. And, the Affordable Care Act insurance doesn't always cover all these things. So it's just adding up. So the point I'm trying to make, because again, there's a cold war going on between the cannabinoid hemp industry and the medical cannabis industry in Texas. And I don't want to talk about it too much because I got clients and friends on both sides of this thing, but it's ultimately their interests are going to overlap. I mean, I know a lot of hemp folks applying for the medical license.
Right.
I know, and they're friends. And again, like I'm rooting for both of them. But when you look at, we could get in the car right now and drive to a CGMP gummy hemp facility in Austin, 3 hours away. We could go to one in Dallas by the airport that's 45 minutes away. We could go to one in Oklahoma City that's another 3.5 hours away. These people are making millions of gummies a month for way cheaper, and they're just as safe. You could arguably say safer than a vertically integrated program where you're responsible for testing your own stuff. Exactly. All the entrepreneurs I talk to, they're either good at growing, they're good at extracting, they're good at packaging. They're not good at all of these things.
Nobody really ever truly is.
Nobody's ever.
If you think about it, cannabis is a supply chain driven.
Right.
It's a supply chain driven industry, right? You have upstream, downstream, midstream, and everybody in between. No one is ever truly good at every single aspect.
The testing people are not even great at testing sometimes.
Right.
They're getting their machines dialed in. And again, with potency problems allegedly in our program, through the medical license. Yeah. And then there's potency allegedly out here with, I don't know who all's got a license, around, but it's hard to dial it in. I'm not even faulting them. But it's like if this super expensive license that does all this due diligence, that takes forever, that's bleeding companies dry, and then you can go get $100 hemp manufacturing license and sell your products for significantly cheaper and with almost the same THC count. So the 3 words I look for is safe, affordable access. Safe, affordable access. And so what I'm saying is, of course, I'm pushing patients to the doctor through the TCUP program because we have to get those numbers pushed up to show that this works. And show it. But then when you're saying you have counties decriminalizing, you have cities saying it's tolerated, and again, these licenses cost $100. And I've been to these facilities that are clean. They're wearing hats. They're wearing shoes. They won't even let us go in there.
Been there.
And so it's like, if I can certify, I got so mad when the AARP magazine was pushing this one CBD product in 2019. And I was with my grandma and they handed her the magazine. I looked up the COA didn't work. You Googled it. They had it wasn't an FDA warning letter, but it was close. It was like a hit out on this company saying, watch out for them. And they're marketing to all these senior citizens. Like I felt personally offended because if I can't even figure it out, how's an elderly lady? So what I'm saying is, I'm not making argument for or against either one, but there are very good operational hemp companies that have CGMP compliant products that have a decent amount of THC that I know are safe and that I know have been through the ringer and that I know are being third party tested. So it's like, that's if you're a patient in desperate need, it's easier to go buy it from a registered hemp retailer that has a clean supply chain. And that's the hardest thing to find. 'Cause you're not going to find that in the convenience store, this and that. So if you know the brand and you can speak to them, and that's hard to do. But it's like, and I'll just kind of wrap because I'm not trying to grandstand on it. But I think there's some hemp products in this state that are cleaner, healthier, better medicine, safe, more affordable, and better easy access without going to see the psychiatrist, a lot of people don't trust the government. People don't want, they might have PTSD, but they might not want that on their record.
So that comes up a lot People,
Yeah.
so they don't want on the record. So they don't want a lot of things they don't want on their record, right? And so, granted, it goes to this DPS website, right? And the public safety. It's open. I mean, it's closed, but it's open, right?
The guns thing.
The
if all of a sudden you're on a list,
you're on the list.
I'm on like 20
You're
lists
on the
already.
list.
I don't need to be on any
They
more
know
lists
why you're
right
on the
now.
list. They know how much you're getting. They know when you're
Right.
getting it.
Right.
Right. And so, I mean, a lot of us don't want to be on that thumb, right? There's enough with like, with Facebook and Instagram now in our business and Google, right?
Right.
So I don't want to add anything else.
Right.
And so that's a big access. And the safety part too, it's safety. My issue is people are buying this black market regardless. We need to make it safe. So we're all worried about, keeping our children safe. Well, why aren't we making it legal? Because your children are still going to go buy marijuana.
Right.
Right.
Just
They're
from the
not
black
gonna stop.
market.
But
the
at
black
least
market.
but at least with a clean program or even open, right, that is tested. Because even now the law is that, if I'm correct, that these dispensaries aren't required to do third-party testing. Correct?
In Texas, they test their own.
They test
They
their
do.
own.
Yeah.
What?
Some of them, sometimes they'll do third-party batches.
Now they do third-party batches.
Yeah.
But there's no requirement.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not saying they're not trustworthy, but I'm gonna tell you what. We know how some corporations are in America. I mean, we've seen the water. We've seen these frozen strawberries just came out with E. coli.
So
I
bad.
want someone to test
Well,
outside.
the truth
of the
is, when
company.
you do self-testing, you're always going to be a little bit biased,
Yeah.
right? Self-bias on
think?
self-testing, it's always going to be there.
Right.
Now, I think you can, some people are better about it
Right.
than others, but when you can actually say that I had a independent third party that doesn't have that integrated bias,
Right.
I think it has a little bit more weight to it. But going back to what you were saying about being in the system, being Big
Yeah.
Brother, some people are very, very sensitive about that. And I've actually had a separate conversation.
I'm sensitive about it.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, you're
Listen,
like, for
I
example,
will not do Ancestry.com for a reason, okay?
Yeah, they're gonna get
no
you regardless.
DNA from
it's
me,
funny
brother.
because so my girlfriend won't do the biometrics for Clear.
Yeah.
She won't register for TSA.
She's going to miss the flight, dude. You tell her. We'll see her.
God.
We'll see her. She'll be
I'll
like,
see you in
next
Dubai.
time.
That's a discussion for another day.
day.
But so some people are very sensitive about stuff like that, to where government has access to your records. I mean, it's supposed to be confidential, but is it truly confidential?
It should be between me and my patient.
Yeah,
it should be. I mean,
that's true.
do we do anything else? Any other diseases in America? Like, if you see me, am I going to put your back pain on this list?
It was so weird, and I don't know about the HIPAA or whatever, but like the whole getting vaccinated thing was really quick. Are you vaccinated or not? And I guess through like an alternative rule, but it's like I thought these things were private,
right?
So it's like there's all of a sudden this movement to where you don't have privacy, you don't have this,
Nothing's
and the
private.
Oklahoma guns thing. I think at one point, I don't know, so don't quote me on it, but it's like if you're a medical patient, you weren't allowed to have guns momentarily or something. In Oklahoma, it's not even like it's like you might live on a farm with like dangerous animals. Like this is self-defense stuff out here on a farm. Yeah. And so you're putting people in a really bad situation, treat your pain that you're dealing with, or like lose the right to defend yourself, not even against other people, but against like these wild animals,
or
in
whatever,
your house,
I mean,
or whatever,
or
an
intruder, whatever.
Or an intruder, which is actually what I'm talking about. Because it's like, why would you want to be on this list? And again, all the points go back to there's the liberty market, which is still thriving, and we say liberty market or legacy market instead of black market, whatnot. I think that sounds great saying liberty. Because
I like liberty market.
I like liberty market too. And
because traditionally I've always said the legacy market.
Legacy market, yeah.
I kind of like liberty market.
I like liberty markets. I forgot why I heard that. I'm a limited government type of guy, but with this, we're putting in our bodies, the FDA. I mean, these FDA letter, there's an idiot that got an FDA warning letter that says, oh, this is the best marketing I've ever had. And it's like, dude, who else want to slap you? And, but it is the best SEO, FDA warning letters. Maybe you told me that. Somebody told me that. It's like the top SEO. If you get an FDA warning letter, you type your company, it's like in perpetuity at the top of Google. But kind of the quick point I'm making, we're making these pros and cons versus the hemp-derived program and the medical cannabis program. And again, I've got friends on both sides of this, and I want both to be successful. It's better for my business for both of these industries to be successful. You don't pick and choose here. But again, what are the pros here? You got to go to the doctor. You got to be on the list. You got to pay extra money. The insurance doesn't cover it. It's hard to drive to. Like, what is the good?
Right. Because we can make it a lot easier, right? Because people always ask me, is there a card? I'm like, no, I mean, we're not that advanced yet. And I can make you a card, but it won't mean anything. Right. Yeah. So I just do letters for people. Like, if you need a letter saying you're on the program, here's a letter, nicely typed up, a little letterhead, you're good. I've had people even use it. So I had a patient use it in a different state. And it worked. And I was like, I didn't write it for that. I mean, but But they actually acknowledged my letter in different. I'm not gonna say what state because I don't want people going there trying to get cannabis. But it worked.
It's funny because people always ask me, so do you guys have a card program in Texas?
What's the point yet? There's 2 dispensaries.
We
don't
have a card program. We don't really need a card program.
Are you talking like a loyalty program?
Well,
like a medical card?
Like a medical
like
card.
a medical, like you go to other states, you have a medical marijuana card.
Yeah.
Right? But we don't have a card system here.
But I mean, if we have enough dispensaries, that'd be cool. If I could give you a card, you can walk in and pick what you want. But
we have 2 licensees.
It's
here.
2 licensees.
It's database driven, and they're required to have a system where they log into DPS. They look you up. But we don't have a card system, and so people always ask me that.
Yes, the thumb's on top of the thumb is right there.
It gets personal to me too. And my mom, it was 2013. Some of the weed I was getting her that helped her. It was visibly helping her. She wasn't eating a lot. She'd smoke this weed and go eat like Chili's 2 for $2 or a big steak or something, and she would noticeably feel better the day after she ate a big meal or something. And we had to be careful because some of her doctors said, because some of the high end cancer medicine she was on, they would test her piss. And urine, with a doctor and a lawyer,
urinalysis,
urine analysis. Okay, do a piss test, pop hot, and wouldn't be able to get her real medicine. And it's like this risk. Are you going to? Are we even trying to time out? And the hair follicle, and it's like, dude, she already lost her hair. And then there are people like we talk about it from. Kind of a nuanced position of what's new, the tech, how are we going to build businesses? Right. But there's literally patients that are literally dying, that are scared, and that have to get put through some rigorous program of, I have cancer. How's this going to affect this? Right. Bank accounts. I mean, I was going to say it earlier, Greenlight lost our bank account from Washington Federal because we got it was like 2018. It was like we got our first sponsorship, and we said very clearly, we're just an events company. It was like, total BS because then we had to go take a full 3 days to go to a new bank account. It's like the problems that we're in. We're just trying to help people. Right. We're literally just trying to help. Of course, we got to make a living and we got to spend our time useful. Like we got to build the program here. But it's just I don't see a lot of these benefits. So I'm trying to be nice, saying, hey, love the doctors, love the program, love the TCUP. But again, when we're saying somebody hits me up immediately, I'd rather send you down to your local CBD store, especially if I know they sourced it from a good manufacturer. Right. That's why I kind of try to point to brands. And I'll follow up with brands too. Like if I know a brand's buying from a good manufacturer, before I keep recommending them, I'll say, hey, do you still buy from that manufacturer? Because we can't go build up a program and they switch. I mean, in Florida, there was dudes making Delta 8 from body shops, literally. And Holly Bell talks about it. She was in charge of the Florida Cannabis Council or whatever. And she would bust Delta 8 people, literally body shops. There's car over here, changing oil, and they're manufacturing Delta 8 over here. And so she went on a spree shutting down some of these manufacturers. Like, that's not what it's about. This is clean pharmaceutical grade medicine. Right, exactly. And let's be real. If we don't get it together, Big Pharma is just going to swallow it because they're the ones that are qualified to do it.
They're trying to now, right?
They're already trying to now. But when we have all these bad actors doing stuff in body shops, it's like it's hard to even
justify it.
And they say, one of the lawmakers said, well, regulate your own industry. I mean, again, limited government type of guy, but you've got to have play by the rules.
I've spoken with so many people about the different methodologies they're using, how they're producing this, some of their products. It's amazing how creative people can get.
Genius.
Everything from spray-ons to using leftover products that they create other products with. I mean, that's a different discussion.
Cannabis science is booming.
It's incredible. So in the interest of time, I'm going to start transitioning to a different topic. By the way, I meant to ask you this. What do you think about psychedelics? Just real quick.
Well,
briefly.
I'm on it right now. No.
It's a okay. So we'll take the Dr. hat off real quick. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've always been here. Right, take it. Put it on. I've always been a supporter of plant medicine. Okay. So, but what is plant medicine? So pull back from psilocybin. This is called plant medicine, right? Okay. Before we had Western medicine, about 200 years ago in our country, what were people doing? Roots. Yep. Right,
cocaine. I think in the Civil War.
We've had we've had plant medicine in other societies for 5,000 years.
So what happens? The Western medicine comes in. They go, oh, we can't make money off this. So now it's quack medicine, right? So now we're going to train all of these doctors to talk about pharmaceuticals and not the plants because we can't make money off the plants. So it was a whole movement to push plant medicine out. All those people doing it were pushed away, called quack doctors, lost their license. This happened like 100 years ago. And so now we have this whole Western medicine guideline that looks at just pharmaceutical drugs.
Well, they created the DEA to go after those folks too.
Exactly.
To run them off, to make sure they were
Psilocybin has been around for eons, okay? You've had ancient cultures using psilocybin for all kinds of things for many years. And they were using it for depression, anxiety, also for enlightenment too. And now, now we have actual scientific things coming out. Oh, psilocybin is great for anxiety, depression. Well, duh. They've been using this, and so I love the research. I love how people now are in certain states who can actually grow their own mushrooms and use them. There's so many good results from mental health and psilocybin that have been documented. Okay, so many people do so well with psilocybin therapy. They do so well with therapy.
I think it was just earlier this week, Oregon actually issued its first psychedelics or psilocybin manufacturing license to, I believe it was a female-owned business. It's the first of its kind anywhere.
Those polka dots hit.
And people shouldn't be, and this goes for all psychedelics. People, I know before people, it's gotten a bad rap, right? People were like, mushrooms, you might jump off a roof, or LSD, blah, blah. But we found that psychedelics don't really cause any long-term, out of all the drugs, they're safe. They've done like literal functional MRIs on people on mushrooms and saw how their brains lit up and made brand new connections.
They repaved it. That's what Paul Stanley said.
Like you think differently, and so your brain opens up a little bit more. I think it allows you to kind of bring in more thoughts that wouldn't be there before. But what I'm saying is that physiologically, though, we know it's safe.
Okay. Well, recently in the last year or so, I've definitely had a boom in number of inquiries about ketamine clinics. So I'm actually doing some work representing investors in ketamine clinics ventures. But I just think it's interesting how that shift has gone that way.
Right.
We have a couple minutes left.
Okay.
What's next for Texas Cannabis TV and Greenlight? 30 seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds. We've got the Texas Cannabis Roundup coming up most likely in August. Stay tuned for that. Greenlight's going to keep consulting. If you're having a cannabis event in the South even, contact me. We can, consult you on venues, who to book, speakers, giving some away of our manufactured credibility to help you throw a successful event. Texas Cannabis TV, if you're interested in, running some ads with us or through our other PR program. I'm also working with Weed and Whiskey TV on Roku. So it's, just any media. I'm very accessible on text, Instagram, email, holler at your boy. I'm always done to talk to you once, for a minute. And then we'll get to it. But come out and see us. 420 is right around the corner. We got some Earth Day events coming on. I'm pretty active online. And so holler at your boy.
All right. What about you, Dr. Rozier? 30 seconds. What's up with ARC and Zen?
Yeah. So my ARC Medical Cannabis Clinic, we're just trying to see as many people as possible. I want to take care of everybody in the state. So if you want to call, it's easy. Website, www.arkmedtx.com. There's a book now button. Just book now. We also can book an appointment with us. I want to take care of everyone that's interested in this. And if you qualify, let's do it. Secondly, speaking out all through Dallas, talking up here in North Texas, educating, getting the word out to doctors, to people, to just people at large to understand what we have at our fingertips to use, and how the Compassionate Use Act can be used to help you get better in all kinds of different ways. Now, I think the big thing too is that we need to educate more. And so working on some new things, talking to people, the Green Healer movement is starting today. So this is the first little movement here. I appreciate you having me on today. Thank you. So I'm going to be doing a lot more educating on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, just helping people understand the nuances of the program, all about cannabis and how it can help you, and just letting people understand like it's safe, how we can work with some access, and also getting involved in the movement here in Texas and moving this forward.
Great. Yeah. Well, it's because we're running out of time. Thank you to both of you for coming on the show. I think it's we could have gone another 30 minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
Run it back
for sure.
But really, thank you both for coming on, and I certainly learned a lot, and appreciate you coming on.
Shout out to the Sativa Segment and Dads at Peace.
Come on.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you very much.